During House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi's briefing, she talked about federal spending and the debt limit. This is 20 Minutes.
Busy day, huh? Busy time. Seems we're always expressing our sadness. Our thoughts and prayers today remain with the families and loved ones of those killed and injured in the tragedy at the Navy Yard. Yesterday, we were joined by families from Newtown, from Aurora, from Chicago, and across the country who had lost children and siblings to gun violence. Whether at a military facility like the Navy Yard or wherever violence occurs in the country, our commitment remains the same. We must honor the memory of those lost, not just by moments of silence, but by using our time to pass legislation to reduce gun violence. We need more than that moment of silence. Tomorrow, the Republicans will hold their Tea Party continuing resolution. That Tea Party resolution is to shut down government, to double down on the Republican requester that will cost us 1 million jobs. This is a job killer by the end of 2014, and that's a conservative estimate. It could be 1.6 million jobs, and gut investments in education and research. To put American companies what's really interesting about it is it's a wolf in wolf's clothing. It's a terrible appropriations bill, the CR, but it is also a bill that puts insurance companies back in charge of medical decisions for America's families. This is a resolution that devastates health care in other ways, other than just defunding the Affordable Care Act and related to that. It effectively eliminates the strongly bipartisan children's health insurance program. You may recall that when that passed in the Senate in a bipartisan way, it was a veto-proof majority with a 70% cut in the CHIP program. It wreaks havoc by disrupting provider payments on Medicare, and it also, again, the Children's Health Program, and cuts billions of dollars from the National Institutes of Health. This is not a healthy thing for children or other living things. I call to your attention a letter from our ranking members, Mr. Waxman and Mr. Levin, about the impact on Medicare and S-CHIP of this. Democrats have a responsible, balanced alternative authored by our ranking member, Mr. Van Hollen, whom you know very well, to reduce the deficit in a responsible way, to end the devastating across-the-board cuts of the sequester, and to instead make investments in the future and keep the government working, open and working for the American people. On the subject of the debt limit, it is my understanding that we will be voting on something is being prepared for us to vote on next week. Shutting down the government is one bad thing. You shut it down, you open it up again. Not lifting the debt limit is unleashing a torrent, a river of no return. It is beyond cataclysmic. As if a government shutdown wasn't bad enough for the American people, the Republicans actually, I don't even like to use the word Republicans because this is a name that has been hijacked by a segment of the Republican Party, the Tea Party element in the Congress. Republicans are determined to hold the full faith and credit of the United States of America hostage to their radical agenda. Refusing to raise the debt limit poses a cataclysmic danger to the stability of our markets and the economic security of our middle class. But don't take that from me. Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke said, a government shutdown, and perhaps even more so, a failure to raise the debt limit, could have very serious consequences for the financial markets and for the economy. And what does that mean to you? What does that mean to the average, everyday, wonderful American? Raising the interest, if we were to not lift the debt limit, last time just the conversation about it lowered our credit rating. But if we were not to lift the debt limit, it would have this impact on America's families. It would raise interest rates on your credit card, on your mortgage, on your car payment, on your student loan, and if you own a small business, on your business loan, for one. Two, jeopardizing the markets, as the chairman has mentioned, would impact your 401k account, your pensions, and your retirement accounts. The impact on the markets would have a devastating effect on individuals' 401ks. In addition to raising interest costs for families and harming their 401ks, even the talk, as I say, of default in 2011 led to a downgrade which dramatically slowed economic growth, impacted the markets, and caused consumer confidence to plummet. Democrats support a clean increase in the debt limit to ensure America can pay its bills and prevent another debilitating crisis in our country. The votes are there. We will provide a huge number of votes for a clean lifting of the debt limit. It only takes some Republicans to do that. This is playing with fire. Legislative arsonists are at work when they start using the debt limit for their own agenda. Our country cannot afford another Republican-manufactured crisis, which this is. It's time for Republicans and Democrats to join together to put people to work, to grow the economy, to strengthen the middle class. As we leave here, I'll go to the floor and we'll address what we're doing today, and that is the reduce the funding for SNAP. Last week, I was in church in Houston, and the priest cautioned people there in his sermon. He said to be careful about praying in church on Sunday and not praying on other people during the week. And this is exactly what this legislation does. Its quarry are our children, our seniors, our returning vets, so many people affected by this cut in the SNAP program. On the floor, we have a Republican majority ready to do just what I said. In the debate today, we'll share the real faces of hunger in America, chief among them, again, our children, our seniors, our veterans, and their families. 1 in 5 kids struggles with hunger. Nearly half of SNAP recipients are children. Nearly 4 million Americans over the age of 60 rely on nutrition assistance. Nearly 3 million veterans and their families don't get enough to eat each month. This bill will jeopardize food aid for many of our vets and their families. It's time for Republicans to abandon this dangerous bill and work to enact a 5-year comprehensive farm bill. It's necessary for our farmers. It's necessary for our consumers, for food security, and for our, again, farmers and ranchers, and strengthens rural communities. 5-year farm bill, it shouldn't be this hard. And then to have as our path to the conference taking food out of the mouths of babies. This is remarkable. But it is a manifestation of the budget policies that I talked about earlier. Any questions?
Senator Pelosi?
Yes, sir.
Yesterday at the event with the families, you
Yes.
called on the House to act on gun violence legislation. Would you like to see the Senate, which is controlled by Democrats, vote again on gun violence legislation before the end of the year, whether or not they're absolutely certain of having the votes?
Well, as you know full well, that the reason the bill did not pass in the Senate is because it required 60 votes. And while it had a majority of the Senate voting for it, it did not have the 60-vote margin. What I would like to see is for us to pass legislation, not to pass legislation. And again, as I said yesterday, we have no right to have a moment of silence unless we're going to spend our time trying to reach legislation that will reduce gun violence. It's in an agenda of things that we've talked, restore confidence in our economy by creating jobs and stop this foolishness of this talk of shutting down government and not lifting the debt ceiling. It's about who we are as a people by and large, with respect for our Native American friends, a nation of immigrants. Let's pass comprehensive immigration reform. We take an oath to protect and defend. Let's restore confidence in the safety of our neighborhoods, our schools, our communities by passing the background check legislation.
I'd like to see Democrats take another shot at the legislation in this Congress.
Well, I'd like the Senate to take another shot so that we can win on it. And I don't know what changes they can make, but certainly we believe that if the Senate bill that did not prevail for lack of 60 votes would come up in the House, that it would pass, in the House of Representatives. So I think that the support is there. What more? I mean, 90% of the American people support background checks. How come that's not reflected in some way for this discrete bill to pass the Senate and the House? We're not giving up on this. We're not going away on it. And as you saw yesterday, we owe it to those families. But you know, so for such a long time, we've had the problem of violence in inner cities and the rest, and now we see Aurora movie theater, and we see a kindergarten in Connecticut and the rest. Everyone, your children, everyone is at risk. This is really as protected a facility as the Navy Yard, 12 people being killed by a lone gunman. We really have to act upon it. So many other factors are involved, but all of them come to a place where background checks would be the answer.
Mrs. Pelosi?
Yes. Yeah.
The president of Iran recently said in an interview with NBC News that perhaps that they would not use they would not try to develop any nuclear weapons, that they would be open to opening up their country to more freedom of the internet, and the idea when he was asked about the Holocaust denial of Mr. Ahmadinejad, he sort of deflected that and said, well, I'm a politician, not a historian. It seemed to struck a moderate tone. Do you have any faith in the new president of Iran, that he could be a more able-bodied and willing partner to work with than Ahmadinejad? And what are your thoughts about his most recent comments?
Well, I hope that it's not just a public relations campaign, but is an accurate reflection of what their views are. We always want to see a diplomatic path. And I do think that, again, to salute the president for his courage to say we will not tolerate the use of chemical weapons and we will act upon that is a message to Iran, too. I think the conversations with the Russians about how to deal with chemical weapons in Syria would serve us well as far as Iran is concerned, in terms of something Tom Lantos advocated for years, which was to have the spent fuel, et cetera, under international, not only inspection, but custody. My daughter, as you may know, received one of those emails from the, when the bragging, usually I'm bragging about my grandchildren, when Christine responded to the foreign minister, not the president, the foreign minister put out a Rosh Hashanah message, happy Rosh, whatever the term is, greetings for Rosh Hashanah, and she said, interesting, sir, but how about stopping the denial of the Holocaust? To which he responded to her saying, that's not Iran, that's one person, and he's not here anymore, or words to that effect. So that was encouraging, and more encouraging, of course, the words coming from the president of the country. We'll see. We're all looking forward to his speech to the United Nations, to perhaps a meeting with the president. I don't know if that's a reality, but again, any engagement, any diplomatic efforts are welcome.
Last question.
We do too, because I really called on him before, but
Sorry.
quickly, because we need the room for the speaker.
On the CR here, the bill has been written with the House at the 986 level. There have been rumblings.
988.
What, 986 after the rescore?
Oh, after the
Just those 986. So Chuck Schumer said yesterday that they would try to get as high a number as they possibly could. If they strip out health care in the Senate and it comes back, can your side take it at 986, or does it have to be at 1058 or anything higher than 986?
We're not demanding 1058 or 1057, whatever the score is, but we do think that there's a compromise that can be reached. But I can't tell you what we will take until we see what the bill is. And the Democrats can supply votes if Democrats have a say in what the legislation is. So again, we'll be interested to see if the Senate is successful in stripping out I don't characterize it, Senator Reid already has very well the attempt on the Republican side with the Affordable Care Act, restoring, putting your health decisions in the hands of the insurance companies. But if they strip that out, we'll see what they do after that and what can pass the Senate. But if they want Democratic votes in the House, our whip has been very, very forceful, and I think he speaks for our caucus almost across the board when he says we just cannot have that number, which is really $20 billion less, as you know. By January, it's $20 billion less, plus perpetuating sequester, and be something that we put our imprimatur on. But let's see what the bill is. We've suggested a splitting the difference. That didn't seem to work so far from our side, from the House side. But obviously, we always stand ready to try to work together to reach a solution to keep government open and to raise the debt limit because of what it means to households across America. And we'll see when it comes back. But right now, the mood is not favorable to a 986 number. Yes, sir, and that's it because...
That was my question, but let me ask you another one.
Oh.
No, I was going to ask you about the CR, but let me ask you something else. With John
And I'll
Boehner-
decide whether we have one more question or not.
Oh,
Okay,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry.
Yeah, no, go. No, that was passes for humor in certain circles.
You and other Democrats have suggested that Boehner just has lost control of his caucus. Could you explain the frustration, the difficulty of trying to make any deal with the Speaker, given the rebellious caucus he's got, and the fact that he doesn't seem to be often the perception that he's not in charge?
Well, let me say, I haven't said that he's lost control of his caucus. Maybe he's in full control of his caucus. I don't know if he's a reflection of his caucus or the reflection of him. But let's just say I wish the Speaker well. He's Speaker of the House. We have a responsibility. For example, the debt that has been incurred that we have to raise the limit to was incurred by the Congress of the United States. So we have a responsibility to lift the debt ceiling. And that's not for new spending. That's for spending that has already occurred. So I think that it's not just up to the Speaker, but the outside has to weigh in and say, we understand the consequences of not lifting the debt ceiling, even if you don't. Let us explain that to you. That means in our household, increased car payment, credit card payments, student loans, mortgage payments, small business loans across the board. What that means to my 401, anybody out there with a 401k? It's very much in danger. So again, this has to be, I think, a national discussion because I'm not sure people know, again, the pyrotechnics that are going on by the Tea Party in the Republican caucus and what that means directly to them. So I wish the Speaker well. I respect the Speaker. I wish him well. And I hope it doesn't hurt him too much that I said I respected him. Thank you all. See you later. Bye-bye.